Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Do you know what God has invested in you? And are you using it to bear fruit? Today I'm in Matthew 23 through 25, and it is pretty heavy stuff. So we start out with the scribes and Pharisees. Jesus is explaining with them hearing it. So in their hearing, he's explaining to the crowds that the scribes and the Pharisees have set themselves onto the seat of Moses. And if you remember what this is back in the Old Testament, Moses' father-in-law suggested to him how to distribute and how to delegate the rule of law, and people coming to him to settle disputes and to understand the finer matters of how they were to interact and solve problems. And so the scribes and the Pharisees, he says, have put them on this seat, but they are dictating rules that are for the people and not for themselves. So we see this today, unfortunately, in our ruling class, those that are in power in Congress and our Senate, where they have rules for thee and not for me. This is a model of leadership that is problematic, and Jesus is warning about it, that those that are putting themselves above others and then also they don't have to follow everything that they know. These scribes and Pharisees are intimately involved in the written recordings of God's will and rules for the people. They're making up their own as well, but they do know what was actually correct. And their responsibility then, because they carry the knowledge, should be to walk it out and to be that example. And Jesus is saying here that if you are a leader in a community or a leader in your home, you must walk out what it is that you know to be right. He says that to the scribes and the Pharisees, that they are shutting off the kingdom of heaven from people because you didn't go in. As a leader, if you don't enter the kingdom of heaven here on earth, enter into God's blessings by following His laws and rules, you are not demonstrating how to do that, and the people that you are leading cannot do that. No matter how much rule and law and legalism you drop on their head, they can't enter into that space because they aren't watching you. And that is super powerful. Jesus goes through a lot here on the signs of Christ's return. And so there are many that you may have heard of before: false prophets, hearts growing cold, lawlessness, earthquakes, kingdom against kingdom, nation against nation, the sun darkening. He has the parable of the fig tree here, where we see the limb begin to get supple and change color, and these are signs of spring, and so too is the signs of Jesus' return. And this has been argued over for a long time as to whether he is talking about something that has already happened or whether he is talking about a time that still has not come for us. And I would be of the mind that he's talking about a time that is still to come. You may be in a different camp, but you should know where my biases are as you're listening. He goes over the parable of the 10 virgins. 5 were prepared for a long wait, and they took their lamp as well as extra oil. And 5 didn't really think they needed to be prepared for a while because they had it figured out when the bridegroom was going to come. And so they only took their lamp, but it took longer. And those that had been prepared to settle in and wait the long haul were the ones who went in and met the bridegroom. And the other 5 were out running around trying to get oil. He talks more about the judgment of separating. We've seen this in many of the other parables that are in Matthew coming to this point, separating the fish, the good fish from the bad fish, separating the wheat from the darnel, the wheat from the chaff, plants that don't bear fruit. This is again being driven home that you want to be in the side of things that go well for you. He talks about another separating here, sheep on the right and goats on the left. You do not want to be a goat. I love goats. I don't think Jesus is saying anything necessarily bad about our goats that we love, but he is using them as a symbol for those that are sort of stuck in stubbornness, rebellion, and disobedience. Characterizations that we are familiar with if we raise goats. But I want to go back to the parable of the talents. Now, here in the Bible, talents still meant a unit of measure. It's money. He is giving them different slaves different amounts of money, and it says according to their abilities he is giving these talents. So he's not giving one slave, he gives 5 talents, which means he believes that the ability of that slave is higher. There is more potential there, and so he gives more to that slave. This goes back to those who have been given more, more will be given, and to another he gives 2, and then another one he gives just 1. And so for whatever reason, that final slave, he didn't love that slave any less, but he only gave 1 talent to, because their capacity wasn't as big as the other 2. So the one who got 5 is in the slave owner's absence, trades and gets 5 more, doubles his money. The one who was given 2 doubles his money, and when the slave owner returns, hands him back the original 2 and 2 more. And the final one was so frightened by the power of and strength and wisdom of the slave owner that he was too intimidated to get out there and use his talent, and so he buried it so that nothing would happen. He didn't want anything to happen. He didn't want to get lost. He didn't want it to get stolen, so he protected it, and he buried it. And the slave owner is pretty mad at the one that buried it. And it comes back for me for these are now, we look at talent to mean something different. And we can read it that way here because talent, the etymology of the word talent that we use today did start with the root word of the same talent that is in the Bible. At that time it meant money, a unit of measure, and it evolved to mean something, an innate ability, something that is in you, a capacity, a talent, an ability to do something well. And so we can look at this and say, okay, let's talk about them as talents. We are all given talents. We are all invested in. God invests every human being with some talent that is intended to be used to further his kingdom. I was given the talent to sing, to stand in front of people. Later on, I think I developed a talent for writing. And we are so mixed up when we think about this. We get turned around with the fact that, well, don't brag about what you've been given. Don't brag about, say you're good at something. No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't be bragging about what we have a unique capacity to do that is only in our person. We need to be bragging on God. The talents that we were given have been given to us specifically to further His kingdom. So if whatever talent you have been given, you need to look inside yourself and understand what it is. What is unique about you? What have you been given that you excel at over other people? And this is as unique, and as there are as many possible talents as there are people on the planet, because God is capable of using each and every one of us. The trick here is to look at the parable again and say, the one who got 5 brought back 5 more. The one who got 2 brought back 2 more. And the one that got 1 buried it. So you may have been given huge talents, and you may be burying them. You may be willfully burying your talents. You may have been only given 1, and maybe you've gone out there and fearlessly used that 1 boldly everywhere you can to further God's kingdom. We cannot bury the talents. We cannot hide them. And when we talk about health, we cannot hinder our ability to use our talents. I want people to really understand that when we compromise our health by not following God's path, by not following God's examples and everything that He very simply gave us to maintain our health, when we don't do that, we change ourselves, we change our capacity, we limit the ability for our talents to be able to be exercised. So in effect, we bury our talent, and it is no longer available. Either it is available minimally because we don't have the energy, we're sick often, we spend a lot of time focused on needing to get well, or focusing on doctor's appointments, or focused on just putting one foot in front of the other. It takes so much energy to be in pain. It takes so much energy to be ill. And we don't have that energy then to put towards using God's talent for what He put us here, for what your purpose is. So I would challenge you today to think about the parable of talents. Do you know what God invested in you? The investment that He made in you is the talent that He gave to you. Do you know what that is? Have you sat and evaluated what it is that you are uniquely able to do that other people aren't able to do in the same way? Maybe other people can sing. Great. But they can't sing in the way that you do, because God gave you a unique talent and a unique way to express it. So step 1 is understanding what that is. And step 2 is, what is in the way of you expressing it? Are you more afraid of the world than you are of God coming back and collecting on His investment? Are you too afraid to leap off that cliff and express the talent that you've been given to do whatever God is going to do with it? That is what you're supposed to do. You are a vehicle to use that talent. You are intended to bear fruit. That's what we've been talking about in Matthew so far. Those that don't bear fruit are in trouble. Those that don't bear fruit in the investment that God puts in us are threatening their immortal soul, their eternity. Get out there, understand what your talent is, get out there and do it. Do it without fear of the world. Do it with fear of Jesus returning and asking for the fruit that you have bore. Because if you buried your talent and you didn't bear fruit with it, you didn't make more money on His investment, He's going to be angry and there will be punishment. And I don't want to see anybody that I love have to do that, because they are holding on to fear instead of living the full potential and the full purpose of why they're here. I pray that God is blessing you today, and I pray that He is pulling you closer and pulling you into His Word to know Him better, to know His purposes in your life better. And I pray that He brings you back curious and ready to study more with me on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.